Welcome to the Pursuit of Moneyness. I'm your host, Marnus Molster, and in today's episode, we will be discussing the topic of wills, or well, the lack thereof. Why do I say that? It's because 30%, actually less than 30% of the active working South Africans actually has a will in place. That would not have been such a scary stat if 50% of them didn't have a DStv account. So either you're telling me our priorities are seriously screwed up, or alternatively, I just don't think we all understand the effect of what happens should you pass away without a will, or in actual fact, a valid will. Many wills in South Africa get overturned by courts due to the fact that they are not valid. And it doesn't happen to just us average Joes. Take a look at the celebrities and famous people that either didn't have a valid will or passed away without a will, leaving millions and millions of not only dollars but problems for the members they leave behind. And guys, just another thing, we have to be realistic, and it's not to be negative, but we do stay in South Africa, which makes for interesting living to say the least. With 58 new murders recorded each and every single day, with the WHO basically declaring South Africa's roads as the unsafest place to drive, and with over 2 million orphans. The time where you put off writing or drafting a will, that's now gone. Wake up and smell the roses, understand the effect on your family, on your immediate family members, your kids, your wife, your husband, if you do not have a will, or if your will gets declared invalid. Just lastly, before we get into it, remember to subscribe to the newsletter. Basically, this is a letter that goes out each and every single week with the best personal finance tips and tricks, what's going on in the market, and just an overall feel for your personal finances. What baffles my brain about my industry is if I walk through a client's door and there's a husband, there's a wife, there's kids running around, there's insurance products, there's retirement products, there's investments, and everything from the outside in looks fantastic. My problem is, how can you have a family with kids, and how can you be married, how can you own assets, and how can you have debt, but you don't have a will? It doesn't make sense. The cornerstone, in actual fact, the platform that you can build from as a financial planner is actually a will. How can you advise somebody without at least presenting a will to them? Now, I think the problem is twofold. The problem is with financial advisors not pressing on that matter enough. That's why only 30% of our workforce actually has a will. But also, I think the problem lies with relationships between clients and wherever they've set up their will. Because when you as a client set up your will with the bank, it's basically down to you to think for yourself when to update the will. And on very rare occasions do clients actually think in that manner, with all due respect. It's much easier if your will is with a trusted person that you see on an annual basis minimum. Let's just look at one or two examples of what would happen if you still, after this video, don't call somebody to set up a will. Well, first of all, the house you live in, the car you own, the jewelry you have, the money you have in the bank or in investments won't necessarily go to the people that you intend them to go to. Well, where does that create a problem? First of all, you might have not even seen greedy Uncle Sam the last 40 years, and he's inheriting a portion of your estate, where you still leave your wife and your kids behind, which need it more, because your wife needs to put your kids through university, through school, and just basically put a plate of food in front of them. You're taking that right away from them because a part of what you've worked for and accumulated in your family goes to somebody else that's not even in your immediate family. That's a big problem. Second of all, speaking about the kids, let's say something happens to you and your partner simultaneously. What happens to the kids now? Once again, if you don't put it in your will, who's going to be the guardians of those kids? Social worker will decide on that. And yes, usually they do look after that matter very cautiously, and I should say very carefully. But the thing is, you would like that control over what the fate of your kids probably in your own hands, and you'll be the best judge on who's going to be the guardians for those kids. Am I right or wrong? And also, a person might be the right fit to look after the kids, basically in terms of their well-being, etc. But that person might not have the necessary skill to work with money. So now they're receiving this large pot of money and you expecting them to be able to manage that money so that your kids can still finish school and go to university. That's not always the case. That's a problem. So there's things that you can do, for example, a testamentary trust whereby the funds goes into a trust to make sure a professional body manages that trust. In other words, the trustees manages the trust in the best interest of your kids. In other words, of your beneficiaries that you leave behind. Because also what will happen is kids that are below 18 years of age can't inherit. So your money could be going all over the show in your whole family tree, and the people who need it most might not be able to get to it until they are 18. Meaning people are going to look after your kids without any money to do so. So what standard of living are you then leaving your kids into once again? So guys, all of this can literally be solved by having a will. There's unfortunately one reality that we have to face up to, and that is that we're going to pass away. This is uncontrollable, but a couple of things is well in your control. Like what happens to the stuff that you leave behind and who gets to take care of your kids. Setting up a will makes sure that people you intend to inherit actually do. You also appoint the person you want as an executor to deal with your estate. If both parents had to pass on, you also control who gets to be the guardians of your kids. All the funds coming from your estate can now also go into a testamentary trust managed by professional trustees that only has your children's best financial interest at heart, so that your guardians can focus on their well-being. It's easy peasy, right? All you need to do is decide who gets what, who looks after your kids. The rest is up to your financial advisor to balance out and execute. No more excuses. Guys, and how easy is that? That will literally take an hour or 2 hours of your time tops. That's how easy it is. What are you avoiding? Well, unfortunately to Uncle Sam, he can't buy that speedboat anymore. Your ex-partner can't trade you in for a 15-year younger model and go and live on a golf estate. And the kids will be happy to hear they don't have to go to Grandma Pam, who takes naps between brunch and lunch. All that in literally an hour or two. Fantastic, right? Well, if you want to take anything from this meeting, at least do yourself a favor and book a meeting with a fiduciary specialist to just advise you on a will and the validity of a will. Guys, just to end off with, they say there's two certainties in life, death and taxes. Both of them are applicable discussing a will. Not the hottest topic in the world, but still, it's a necessity. Guys, go out there, please draft your wills. If you've got any questions, you're welcome to ask me directly on info@pursuitofmoneyness. Also remember to subscribe to that email list. We're growing the audience and you will receive weekly mails with the best personal finance tips and tricks, especially in this week's edition where we will be sending out tips how you can look at your will and make sure that it is still valid. Book a meeting with a fiduciary specialist. Don't go to the bank. You don't see that person often enough. Book somewhere that you can have a personal relationship with that can review your will each and every year. A lot of things change. Keep up with the changes. Thank you so much and join me again next week.